Hello everyone. I welcome you all for the today's session on digital system design using Verilog, lecture 6 on the module 1 about introduction and methodology there. Today we'll be concentrating on the concepts called as sequential basics. In that we'll be covering today sequential data path and controlled clock synchronous timing methodology there. Okay. First we'll concentrate on sequential data paths and controls. So if you observe here, the word sequential indicates that that's a flip-flop involved in this one. Okay, along with the combinational circuits, what we have there. So what are the designs or how the data is transferred from the input to the output and which signals are controlling this data inputs are the important things we must analyze today there. So if you take a simple example of multiplexer, we have 4 inputs, 1 output. But this input and the output is controlled with the help of select lines. Okay, simple way to understand that one. So we have seen how the information can be binary encoded with the help of a encoder and decoder there. How the encoded information can be operated upon using the combination circuits and how encoded information can be stored using the registers. Okay, now we have also seen the registers are needed both to avoid feedback loops in combination circuits and to deal with the data that arrives at the inputs. In a simple way, how the clock signals are used to transfer the data from the input to the output. So in the second thing is that in many digital systems, the operation to be performed on inputs are expressed as a combination of simpler operations such as arithmetic operation and selection between the alternative data values. In a simple way, some example which we are going to see today is about some of the arithmetic operations and how the data is transferred from the input to the output and which are the control signals which is controlling the operations there. Okay. So our general view of digital system divides the circuit that implements the operation into data path and control, as we already discussed now. So the data path contains combinational circuits that implement the basic operations and the registers that stores the intermediate results. So in data path, whatever the operations are there with the help of combination circuits and the registers are used for storing the information of the operations what we have. And whatever the operations are there, which has been executed by the combination circuits. So the control section, what it does is that it controls the operation, how the data is to be transferred from the input to the output. So in particular, control section ensures that control signals are activated in the right order and at the right time to cause the data part to perform the required operations on the data flow. It means what? At what time, what operation need to be done and in which order is need to be done is entirely taken care by the control signals. And how these control signals are performing is very, very important because it should meet the timing constraints are there. So we say that control section performs controlling sequence. So that's the important thing. So here two different data paths what we have as data path and control. So in many cases, the control section make use of status signals generated by the data path. Now in order to optimize the area of their model, that's the design model. So what we do is that sometimes we make use of the available status signal or as a control signals there, okay, which are generated with the help of data paths. One of the most challenging tasks in digital system design is a data path and corresponding control signal to meet the given requirement constraints. So anything in our VLSI design, the first and foremost important task is that it should meet the requirement constraint. Whatever the functionality, whatever you're executing it, but it should meet the requirement constraints. That's the important thing. So either it is data path control or a design model or a verification or a testing, anything when you consider. Okay, so the requirement constraint has to be met properly there. If it is not met, then that particular model doesn't work properly. So the designer has to take care of designing the model which meets the requirement constraint. So there are usually many alternative data paths that could meet the functional requirement. But choosing among them usually involves the trading off between the area and performance. So here, if you observe one of the terminology, what is highlighted here is that we can design the model in different format, but selection of the data path for that particular functional verification has to satisfy the important constraints that specifically concerns on area and performance. So whichever the data path model what we are designing to that particular design model, which is verifying the functional requirement, it has to take care of the timing constraint. Along with that, one of the important constraints are area and performance. If these two performances are met with the help of considering the data path and control signal, then the particular model is working properly and it can be given to the market. So that's the important thing what you have to need to understand about the data path selection there. Now, let us case study one question there. So here this is the question or this is a case study on the data path and control signals. So what is that? Let us see. So develop a data path to perform a complex multiplication of two complex numbers. What is the question here? We are multiplying two complex numbers. The operand and the products are all in Cartesian form. The real and imaginary part of the operand are represented as signed fixed point numbers with 4 pre-binary point and 12 post-binary point. The real and imaginary part of the product are similarly represented, but with 8 pre-binary points and 24 post-binary points. The complex multiplier is subject to constraint that strongly limits the circuit area. So this is the given question. Okay. The two complex numbers are A is equal to AR plus JAI and B is equal to BR plus JBI. When you multiply this, product is equal to A and B, real part and the imaginary part. So this is the real part what we get when we multiply that, and this is the imaginary part what we get when we multiply it. If you observe this particular equation, it has 4 multiplications: 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 fixed point multiplication, 1 subtraction and 2 additions there. 1 addition, but general addition with the 2 multiplication term there. If you have to implement the complex multiplier as a combination circuit, separate components would be needed for each of these operations, consuming a larger circuit of area. What happens here is that if you want to use only the combination circuit, then the area increases. But we are making use of certain registers to store the value there. Now let us see. Since area is a strong constraint in our design, so what we do is that we can reduce the area by using one multiplier to perform the 4 multiplication in sequence. Okay. And one adder and subtractor to perform the real and imaginary part of the product. So we need registers to store the intermediate result. Okay. So this is the figure for implementing the particular operation of a complex numbers. So if you observe, it is having multiplexer, multiplier, registers to store, addition and subtraction to perform the addition and subtraction operation there, and finally to store the result in the final register there. And if you observe the control signals such as A select, B select for the multiplexer, for storing the register control signals are the clock, and another one for controlling the ALU operation, we have a subtract operation or addition depending upon the accuracy method, and just to transfer the data to the registers. We have P underscore R underscore chip enable, P underscore I underscore CE, there is a chip enable. That is product real part, chip enable, product imaginary part, chip enable there. Okay, so this is the circuit. Now for this particular circuit, we need to write the Verilog program there. So if you see, since the multiplier is shared, so multiplexer and the multiplier inputs are needed to select the operand. So what happens if you observe multiplier is shared? So we need a select line to select the data part. The result of a given multiplication is stored in one or the other partial product registers. So this is the partial product registers what we have. To form the real part of the complex product, two partial products are subtracted by the adder. So as we have seen that we have a addition and subtraction in the partial product there, like the complex numbers. So we use the adder or a subtractor circuit in our design there. So to perform the imaginary part, two partial products are added. As we know, real part we need subtraction, imaginary part we had a addition there. So in each case, the part of complex product is stored in the output registers. So respective registers store the output for the real part as well as imaginary part. So in the diagram, we can see that a signal upon which the data flows are drawn with thicker line. If you observe this thicker line, this is how the data is passed. And all these thinner lines are all control signals. This is how we differentiate between the data path and the control signals. Now, let us write the Verilog model for the given complex multiplier there. If you observe, what are input and what are output? So output are P underscore R, P underscore I. Since it is a signed numbers having the exponential term, so if you observe, the output is before decimal point is 8 digits, after decimal point is 23 digits. That is a 24. So we have 7 colon minus 24. Input, since it is 8 bit, so it is 3 colon minus 12. AR, A underscore R, A underscore I, B underscore R, B underscore I. Respective input for the multiplexer. Next clock, reset and input ready to transfer the signal. Okay. So these are the things what we have it in defining the model. So what is the name of a model? Module multiplier. So for this particular model, we are assigning a name called as multiplier with the help of a module. So module multiplier output registers signed numbers 7 colon minus 24 P underscore R comma P underscore I. The output input sign numbers A underscore R, A underscore I, B underscore R and B underscore I are 3 colon minus 12, and then clock, reset and input ready. We have intermediate signals called as registers, A select, B select, product. There's a partial product chip enable there, which we have it for respective partial product here. Subtract for controlling the signal for the ALU, and another control signal that is P underscore R underscore chip enable for the final result to be stored at the flip flop. So whatever the same size is there, we have to use it here. So wire are assigned 3 colon minus 12 for A operand, B operand, and 7 colon and minus 24 for partial product and sum. Similarly, partial product 1 line 2 because of the we have 4 multiplications there. So this is the wire what we have defined there. Next, let us see the select operation of the multiplexer. So assigning the operand here, A operand, there is not of A underscore select. If you observe this one, we are using, if it is 0, select AR, if it is 1, select A underscore I. Similarly, for B operand assignment, depending upon the select signal, if select signal is 0 for the B, it is B underscore R because it is a real part, B underscore I is a imaginary part. Okay, then we need to perform the partial product of this particular respective bits for A operand and B operand and store the exponential term that is after decimal point for 12 digits there. Okay, now always at rising edge of the clock, what happens? The partial product 1. Okay, so it has to be activated. So whatever the partial product 1 is there, it goes to, if this particular enable is 1, whatever partial product what we got it for the real part, it goes to the PP1 there. For imaginary part, it goes to PP2 there. So finally, what we do is that either addition or subtraction depending upon the control signal of a sum there. So assign sum is equal to, if sum is 0, perform addition, there is imaginary part. If sum is 1, perform real part, there is a subtraction there. Okay, this is the real part and this is the imaginary part when we perform the sum operation. Okay, and then the sum has to be given to the real part, right, for the rising edge of the clock. If the rising edge of the clock is for the real numbers, the sum goes to the P underscore R. If it is imaginary, its sum goes to the P underscore I there. So this is how we can write the Verilog model for the given question there. If you have any questions, go to the comment section, write down your questions, I'll reply to your question. If you like my video, subscribe to my channel, click on the bell icon for further information. Thank you.